Hello, and welcome to this live stream production from Caffe Lena, the historic listening room in Saratoga Springs, New York. Today's free stream is made possible by the generous support of the Sarah B. Folk Charitable Fund, as well as by the Adirondack Trust Company Community Fund, Kevin and Claudia Bright, Polly Set, and our Virtuoso and Lifetime members. You can watch past episodes of this series on youtube.com/CaffeLena. To learn more about our nonprofit venue and programs, please visit caffelena.org. Enjoy your front row seats for this event, live from Caffe Lena.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Caffe Lena. We're going to get underway here. And thanks so much to everybody for showing up on this beautiful, beautiful September afternoon. This series is called Serving Saratoga, Conversations with Community Leaders. And the purpose of this is to get to meet and know the motivations of the people behind Saratoga's amazing social impact sector organizations, what inspires them, who they are, how they stay invigorated in the work that they do, how they stay creative. So we can all learn from each other and feel great about the impact that we're having on this community and on the wider world. So I am here today with Jill VanKuren. She is the president and CEO of Saratoga Hospital, and welcome to the Caffe Lena stage.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to be here with you. And this is kind of a big month for you because if I'm not mistaken, you have just passed your 1-year anniversary in your position.
Absolutely. The 19th was my very first day. So
All right.
I'm 1 year in.
1 year and 1 week. I love it. Well, congratulations. And I know that I've heard wonderful things from a lot of people about the work that you're doing. So welcome to Saratoga. When you were hired, Michael Toohey, your board president, said, from her first interview, Jill impressed us with her understanding of the vital role of a community hospital in a larger health system. And so in order to orient us to exactly what your job is, I would love it if you could just talk a little bit about what that means.
Sure. So Saratoga Hospital is an affiliate of Albany Med. So we're partners. We're strategic partners, but we maintain our independence. So the board, Mr. Toohey, has the ability to hire and fire the CEO, make that selection. We have local fiduciary control. We have a local foundation where any money donated to the hospital stays in this community. So it keeps our focus on community needs. But we have the partnership with Albany Med to add activity to this community. So we are able to bring more specialists where, as an independent hospital, we wouldn't be able to hire some of those providers. We are purchasing and installing an electronic medical record together, which is an extremely difficult and expensive endeavor that we wouldn't have been able to do on our own. So there's a lot of benefits with being part of an affiliation, but still maintaining your independence.
That's neat. And is that a growing model in
Absolutely.
healthcare? That's what I thought, yeah.
The bigger model is acquisition, where the larger systems purchase smaller community hospitals. But this is a very innovative and less common model where you'll be able to maintain your independence but still have that strong affiliation partnership with other hospitals in your local area. And that local word is important. We are not controlled by a system from another state that has different motivations and interests. We are an affiliation of community hospitals in the same community.
That feels like Saratoga to me.
Absolutely.
Great. So tell us a little bit about how you got on this path of working in the healthcare sector, and what is it about healthcare that drew you to it as your mission in life?
I think much like most people that go into healthcare, you're drawn to it usually from an early age, where service speaks to you. For me, leadership and my business skills were stronger, but my passion was for health and community service. So I started out actually thinking I wanted to be a doctor because that was the only thing that I knew. There wasn't really a lot of role modeling of other careers within healthcare that were non-clinical. So as I matured through my college years, I started to explore public health and administrative service. Still had the dream of going to medical school, until I really started to study the industry and realized that physicians, as we've matured through the industry, have become so hyper-specialized and focused, and their sphere of influence can be 1,500 people. Whereas administration, it's tens of thousands of lives that you can touch. Although there are a lot fewer jobs in administration than there are in medicine. So if someone had told me that there's really only about 600 positions that you could either hope to apply for as CEO, and there's less than 200 of those that are actually held by women, that would have seemed like a pretty steep hill to climb. But I think I still would have done it.
You went right up it. That's great. Well, you have quite a background of working in significant management positions in the healthcare industry, but this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time you've been a CEO.
It is.
How is that different?
The CEO function is much more broad, and I think the focus is on community relationship and visionary leadership. In operations, you are literally the person that gets woken up in the middle of the night when the plumbing doesn't work or when the power goes out. I still get those calls and react to them, but
Of course you do.
But I have a broader team, with me, and I have to trust that they can handle those issues, and that my role is more strategic and is far more broad than it used to be.
Right, so that's a bigger, more complicated tool that you have to carry out your vision with. And how's that been going?
It's been wonderful. Earlier in my career, I was a strategist and focused on business development. And I think that was the single most important part of my history to set me up for success as a CEO. Because you're thinking not only of what you're doing today and tomorrow, but what is healthcare going to look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, and helping the people that get kind of stuck in the tyranny of the daily to lift their heads up and say, well, how do we need to position this organization for future growth, not just deal with the emergency that's coming through the door.
I'm going to ask you this. So I would say that the world of healthcare in the United States is not without controversy. It's a country where medical debt can change lives, and access to healthcare is not the same for everyone. So how do those issues affect how you approach your work?
I'm extremely proud to lead a not-for-profit organization where we can balance making sure our balance sheet is healthy to keep the lights on and the doors open, but also provide service for everybody that needs it, regardless of their ability to pay. That's the beauty of our not-for-profit system. You come into our emergency room, you don't have to worry. You will be treated equitably. You will get the access to care that you need. We also have a wonderful community health center and now a backstretch clinic that focuses on that access issue to make sure that we have access for all of our community members, not just for basic emergent care, but for primary care, women's health, behavioral health, and meeting people really where we are. We have a fantastic physician assistant that literally goes out into homeless encampments and meets people where they are and gives them the service that they need and encourages them to seek resources within our network and beyond. So I think that is one of my favorite parts of the job, is being able to help people and not have to focus all the time on that profit and bottom line, although we have to be sustainable.
Of course, yeah. The dreams need to be funded. But the Community Health Center, I have come to understand what a phenomenal enterprise it is. It really is remarkable. Every town needs one, and we are so fortunate. I know a little bit about it. I guess I started working with Dr. Goodemote during the pandemic, actually. She led a community classroom on access to health care. And we did that streamed online, and a whole lot of people watched it. And then when we came up with this idea of having a free health clinic for uninsured musicians in this room, where we would give people free screenings for all kinds of, basic possible health problems. We gave them free ear protection. We got in touch with the Community Health Center and said, is this something you can work with us on? And in about 10 seconds, there were about a dozen nurses and doctors on a Zoom call with Caffe Lena saying, like, we're ready to get started.
Can we do? Yeah.
I think I've never seen anything quite like that. Like, we all love to serve. We all love to, reach out and make good things happen in the world. But, oh my gosh, your team over there is phenomenal.
I think one of the ties that binds us together is a love of Saratoga and the people that make Saratoga special. So our artists are extremely important to the vitality of this community. If you look at the number of people who choose to retire here, that's one of the reasons. There is never a night that goes by that you can't see live music, dance, theater, and we are so blessed to have that community. But the brutal reality is that people that work in our theater spaces don't have insurance. They're just not afforded that, what seems to be a luxury, but in my opinion should be a right to have that access. So when we get those calls, just like with the Backstretch Clinic, the team rolls up their sleeves and comes running.
Yeah, that's what they're there for. And they, health navigators came, and several people got signed up for insurance who had not previously had it. Your team detected some early problems and were able to treat them for free at the clinic, including providing medications until those folks were able to get on insurance.
We also provide dentistry. We have the only dentist in the surrounding community that accepts Medicaid, and will provide free services. That's a shame that they're the only one, but that's something that we are very committed to maintaining and growing if we can. It's difficult to find dentists that want to do that work. But we continue to recruit, and we have a wonderful team of hygienists and one dentist that's there every day. And when she takes vacation, we try to cobble it together, but she's wonderful.
So, all of this is outside the box, right? What role does imagination play in your work?
I think particularly for clinicians, they have to be imaginative. The practice of medicine, it's a practice because, yes, there are books, but you have to be innovative. Every patient that walks through the door is different. Every disease state is different. And to see groups of our clinical teams come together to solve problems, that's what it's all about. And as an administrator, you have to figure out how to make it happen with less and less as each day goes by. And that's strategy, innovation, creative thinking, and collaboration. One person isn't going to solve all the problems of our industry. It takes a village. And every 2 weeks we have a new employee orientation, and I greet our new folks, and what I say to them is, you've all come from different places. You've seen different things. Keep giving us your ideas. If you see something that we're doing that you think we can improve, we want to hear from you. The worst thing anybody could ever say to me is, we've always done it that way, and we're going to keep doing it that way. No, we need to be open and innovative and make sure that we're constantly pushing ourselves to do better.
So that actually leads me to a question. So what have you, I bet that the first job that you had when you were first managing people, you probably came across some of that kind of energy and you didn't like it, but you weren't sure what to do with it. And as you mature in your role as a manager, by the way, that's the woodwind shop downstairs. That's not a ghost.
It's actually quite calming. It's lovely.
For those of you who are streaming, we are hearing clarinets. But what have you figured out along the way about managing people, both people and projects? And is there a lesson that you can share about management that you'd like to pass on, kind of your big idea?
Probably two things. I'll address the first question. When you're met with that resistance, it's usually coming from a place of fear of relinquishing the normal of what you're used to seeing and being. So I think you have to meet people where they are with that and understand what they're afraid of. That change can be difficult. So change management is something that all new leaders should become expert in. Because you're not going to get your vision established if you aren't able to help people cope with change and move through that with pace, but also understand that you're not going to change everybody's mind.
And what are some of the ways that you do help people cope with change?
Part of it is listening, understanding what it is that people value and what their focus is, and then taking that and trying to tie it through what that change process would be. So if they're worried about losing identity, it's helping them maintain their identity while moving forward. If we're afraid of losing access to services as a service is changing and evolving, it's pointing out where that access would be maintained or grow. So particularly with our partnership with Albany Med, there's a fear that we'll lose our Saratoga-ness, right? Who we are as a community. So understanding where that fear comes from and then showing that as people come into our community from the outside, they fall in love with it as much as we do. That the access to the services are for our community. It's not being kind of sucked out to some nether land. So it's understanding where the fear is and showing if it's valid, that we can protect ourselves from it, or if it's not, that there's actually improvement that you can embrace.
Just curious, have you ever been in a situation where you were getting a lot of pushback on an idea and you started to think, maybe they're right?
I would say every day. Sure. Ideas pop up all the time. They're like popcorn, right? And as you're sharing them and not keeping them under a bushel basket, there's always going to be the adverse opinion. And if you don't listen to it, you're actually not doing your purpose justice, because that adversarial comment can actually save you from going off a cliff. So you want to make sure that you're creating space for those comments to influence your decision, and making sure that everybody has that voice at the table. There's nothing that I do that there isn't opposition to. That's life, right?
Relatable?
Yeah.
Is there anything that keeps you up at night?
A lot of things. Your healthcare is faced with a tremendous staffing shortage right now. Equity and access continues to be a problem. We are suffering from a negative bottom line, just like every other healthcare institution in the nation right now. So there is that fear. Can we continue to do what we're doing as we are losing money? That is difficult. I think we do have a way forward. It's going to be probably another year until I think we can get back above that line to profitability. But it will take some sacrifice, some change. We can't always continue to do the same thing we did yesterday and expect a different result. So that it does keep me up at night. I can't just manufacture nurses overnight. Every time I have to write that check for agency nursing staff, it makes me a little nauseous. I have to say there's a lot of zeros at the end of it. But our commitment to the community is to keep our beds open, to keep our doors open. And that's the price that we have to pay to make sure that our emergency room is staffed, our labor and delivery ward is staffed, and that we have the right number of people and the right complement to be there when you need us.
That's amazing to have those kind of life and death pressures on you. That's really what it is. It's a lot. So that's a lot of, potentially a lot of stress, and that is inherent to your position, and there's no escaping that. And so you need to cope with it somehow. Was there ever a moment when you thought, I just am not up to it, I'm going to throw in the towel, when you experienced big doubts? And in those moments, what kept you going? And what have you learned that you would like to pass along?
Throw in the towel, no. That's not part of my nature. But every day, there's a lot of challenge, right? Leadership is a lifestyle. It's not a job. It's not something you do from 9 to 5. It's everything that you do. Whether it's a holiday, a weekend, the middle of the night, you're a leader in healthcare. It is who you are. So I honestly can't picture who I would be without this type of service. My family is very, very supportive, but they also remind me when I'm getting a little crispy and need to take a minute and go for a walk or do some sort of meditative type work because I'm getting a little bit too close to it. And they give me that perspective. We've had some wonderful new friends that have embraced us into this community. And that's been different for me. Saratoga is unique. You don't realize how special this particular community is, how welcoming they are. Coming from Baltimore, it's a beautiful, beautiful environment, but it's very isolated. So you have a lot of different places that you can work, a lot of different places that you can live, but you're surrounded by bedroom communities, community with a little c, a place that you live, not a place that you love and thrive. So you get up, you go to work, you come home, maybe you go to worship if you have that in your life, but that's about it. It's all consuming. Saratoga is welcoming. There's so much to do here that is outside of just transaction. I haven't met a single person that doesn't serve in some way, that they have a passion for service, for art, for community, and that makes this very, very unique.
Wow, that's great to hear, and I have experienced it myself, and through this series have met I've been meeting people like that all of my years in Saratoga, and then when we started doing this series, it just, expanded the circle tenfold, and I learned about how much is out there going on. It's very exciting. Talk a little bit about how you get inspired again or work off some of that extra tension. I always love to hear about maybe favorite books or meditations or podcasts or like whatever you do.
So I'm a little boring in that I read a lot of business books, just to keep my edge sharp. You asked a question about change management a couple of minutes ago, and I've just been perseverating on a book called Who Moved My Cheese? And it's, 15, 20 years old? It is old management style, but it's so perfect to describe in a non-threatening way the different aspects of your emotional reaction to change. And we're actually using it as a leadership tool with our team to understand how we react to the ever-evolving, changing platform that we have in this space of healthcare. So that's what I'm actually working on right now. It is like a 15-minute read, which is good because we're all very, very busy people. But I love to play golf. I like to hike when I'm able. Dine with friends, get out and just meet people in the community. I do spend a lot of time doing that, going to different fundraisers and different corners of Saratoga so that I get to know the people that we're serving. But I think what rejuvenates me most is hearing the experiences of people that have actually come to use our services. Your best day and your worst day can be the same day in a hospital. So it always gives me such a sense of pride listening to the stories. And it's always about how we made you feel. Not just about the healthcare we provided, but the staff and their connection with you and your family. That is the most important thing, and I think that is what makes Saratoga Hospital unique and special.
So I'm pretty sure that when you've been out relaxing and chilling and working off some stress, I've seen you here at Caffe Lena a couple of times. Do the arts play a role in your life, and if so, how and what?
So I've always been an athlete, and that has been my outlet until I had children. I have 2 boys, and both of them are not athletes. They tend to get hit in the head with a ball when you throw it at them. That is not their thing, which is difficult because that's how I convey, like, let's go play ball, and no. They're both extremely talented musicians. They love theater. My oldest son is 19, and he's at Pace studying theater management because although he's an actor, he realizes he has to pay his rent eventually. So he's studying the business of theater, which I couldn't be more proud of, and he's just loving city life. And my youngest is in middle school and is performing in plays and singing. He loves choir and being part of large singing groups. So I get to see a lot of artistic expression in my house, but I cannot sing.
That's wonderful. And it's interesting, like, you wanted to get into healthcare, you went into managing it. He wants to get into theater, he's going into managing it. I like that. One thing I noticed when I was just reading up and preparing a little bit is that you served on the board of the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and I'd just love to hear a little bit about what inspired that service in that area.
So when I worked in Baltimore at Harbor in particular, Harbor Hospital has 2 populations. The poorest neighborhood in the United States, it is the largest tract of Section 8 housing outside of Chicago, and Fish. So one side was the harbor, and the other side was a extremely impoverished community. Wow. And the challenge when people were struggling with addiction and mental health issues is they often had to go to the most accessible bed, the first available bed, and it could be 2 hours away. Well, if you're living in that type of daily life, your family's not going to be able to come and visit you. So what we did as we were looking at the future of that particular hospital is we realized that mental health services would be critical for this community to be local. Although it is typically a loss leader, we convinced the system to fund an expansion of mental health services in that particular community. And in the end, it actually saved that hospital. We were actually going to become Trump's newest casino about 20 years ago because it was a waterfront hospital. The land was worth a lot more than the services that we were providing at the time until we started expanding our behavioral health services. Wow. So in order to educate myself, I accepted a position on the board and just started learning. And we were able to secure grants. We were also able to build the most hospitable and friendly unit I've ever seen in my life. Often behavioral health units, particularly inpatient units, feel like prisons. They look like them. But we built a light and bright center that was absolutely gorgeous. And the most interesting day I had was the day we opened. And I was expecting the staff to come in and say, "This is phenomenal. It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen." And they were downtrodden. I was like, what did we do? Did we not build it correctly? And they said, "No, it's gorgeous, but our patients are going to destroy it." I said, "Really? Why do you think that?" "Well, we don't think they're going to respect the environment." It's been 10 years. The place still looks as good as it did when we opened it. Because when you respect people, they respect the environment. And that has held true. When you feel like you're in prison, you act like you're in prison. When you feel like you're respected and you're treated well, you act differently and you get better faster. So we saw that that was happening too. People were coming in, they were being able to be discharged, stabilized faster because they felt honored to be cared for in such a loving environment. So I would build another one. And we've actually had it replicated throughout the United States. We were hosting people from all over, the four corners of our beautiful country to come and see what we did and to show that if you invest, you'll get better outcomes.
I'm so glad I asked you about that. That's wonderful. And one thing that you said that I think is can apply to every organization in here is when you hit a tough spot, give more. Because in giving more, you can save yourself. You can broaden your sphere of influence. You can attract attention. Sometimes, I think particularly in for-profit businesses, it's the opposite. Like, how can we cut costs? Mm-hmm. And there's certainly a role for that. Sometimes belt tightening is necessary. But is there something more you can do that can revitalize the energy of your organization?
I think recognizing where you have to lean in mm-hmm. and where you need to cut back. There are things that become entitlements, things you've always done that maybe we can't afford to do anymore. It's getting people to understand the why and where you need to make those sacrifices so that when you're met with an opportunity like we just went through, where there was a local community OBGYN group that was starting to fail financially. We were not looking to expand our services, but we knew that if we did not step in and help that group, they would leave. They would go to another part of the state where they felt like they could sustain themselves, and then that patient population would crush the access points that we had. So although it wasn't something we were looking to invest in immediately, we really needed to step in and partner and help because that is a critical service for our community. And in the end, we've figured out how to make it sustainable, and the physicians couldn't be happier. Their patients are very pleased that they still have access in this community. And we've figured out, you put that innovation hat on, how to work with Hudson Headwaters, Glens Falls, and ourselves to come together to save that access. Not every health system does that. The bottom line, when it looks negative, sometimes it's easier to cut than to be innovative.
That's great. Boy, we're at the end of our time. I think I just want to ask you one more question, and that is, do you have a question for your fellow community leaders in this room, either something that you would like to know from them or just a question that you think that they should reflect on that would be helpful?
I would ask for your insight and advice for what need are we not meeting as a healthcare institution? Is there something that we should be focused on that we just haven't been able to meet for you?
That's great. Well, that'll be how we start the conversation when Jill and I get off this stage, and there is coffee and tea and cookies on the table back there. Jill, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for carving out a few minutes in your schedule to come down and share what you know and be with us today. I definitely have some takeaways, including who moved my cheese.
It's a nice quick read.
It feels like the right book for me to be reading as a leader. Great. Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.